Well, howdy, folks. Moose Peterson here. Thanks for coming into the live broadcast. Hey, it's been one of those great days. It's been snowing. It's been busy. It's been full of birds. We've gone through tons of seed. It has just been one of those great days. Hey, let's do some little business. So first of all, remember, you can find me many different places when it comes to the social network. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, my website. Don't forget to check me out on the website. At the same time, remember, click on that subscribe button up there, okay? That subscribe button is going to sit there and give you notifications, tell you what I'm doing, where I'm doing, and how I'm doing it. Well, I sit there and I'm seeing myself, and I see that things are starting to work. So there's a big lag in the buffer, but we'll work through it. Hey, let's get kind of right down to it. Let me see who's here. Ed, hey Ed, how you doing? Oh, I'm sorry, that one name is just really long for me to see with glasses on. But thanks for being here. But you're from Pennsylvania. Tom, hey Tom, how you doing? You getting rain down there? Jonathan, great to see you. Oh, well, that's not to me, that's someone else. Cool, I'm glad to see you guys are talking amongst yourself. That is great too, you know. It is a community, and I really I appreciate Good Dog and Ed sitting there reaching, talking out to each other. So, what's happening? Well, been on this great road trip for basically 30 days. I finally got 1.3 terabytes of finished images and raw files moved into the IO safe today, so that's all done. Caught up. I produced 46 pages of text. Got that done finally since I got home, which was kind of important. Let's see here. And then I did a lot of shooting. Last week I was up in Yosemite, and that kind of brings me up to today's topic. I want to talk about landscape photography. Now, David, how you doing? Fred, how you doing? Dave, how you doing? Now, I have to tell you guys, I have to behave tonight. The producer's here, okay? She's right there watching me, and she's within kicking distance. So if I say something bad, it's going to be, you know, so if I do that, you're going to know the producer, you know, caught me. All right, let's get right to it. Now, first and foremost, understand that since this is my live broadcast, and I'm going to talk about how I take photographs, everything you're going to hear is a bunch of moosisms. So the first thing you have to do is you have to sit there and take this information in, listen to it, and that applies to your photography, okay? Your photography, you need to sit there and absorb it, use it, embrace it. The stuff that doesn't apply to your photography, you need to forget it, not listen to it, don't write it down. Now, I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff tonight, probably more technical stuff than I have in previous broadcasts. Remember that if you subscribe, okay, or you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find this video posted about 45 minutes after we go off the air. And when you do that, okay, you can sit there and watch the video, pause it as I go through all technical stuff, make sure you catch everything, which is really important, okay? So, now, Emerson, you using the chat? You're not texting? Wow. Cool. Glad you got home safely. Let's see. Hey, Harry. Robert. Guy, you guys are tuning in. I appreciate it. All right, let's get right down to the basics, okay? Now, basics. The camera. So I'm shooting raw files. I'm always shooting raw files. Always, okay? No exceptions, I shoot raw. And the reason is pretty darn simple. It's because when I go to make a print, I can make a print from a raw file in minutes, where JPEG will take me hours. Because I have to deal with the fact that it's a JPEG. And for those who don't remember, my definition of JPEG is like dehydrated food. So the raw file is eating prime rib at the table. JPEG is eating prime rib out of a packet and adding hot water and pouring it on your plate. Might be the same flavor, but not the same experience, okay? So I'm shooting raw files. With that said, I know what's going on in here, okay? Let me explain to you. So when you take a picture, your camera's going to make a whole bunch of files and write them every time you go click once. First file is going to be what? It's going to be the raw file, okay? The raw file. As the name suggests, it's raw. No information, it's raw data. It's like anything in a computer. Raw data is just that. We have to have some way to assemble that raw data to get something out of it. So the camera is going to create an instruction set. Now, is it actually called an instruction set? No, this is how it explained to me a long time ago, over 20 years now. I looked it up. Over 20 years ago, it's going to create this instruction set. The instruction set is going to tell the computer, the thing we're looking at, how to reconstruct that raw file. So you're never touching the raw file. That is correct because it's raw data. You are changing that instruction set. Now that instruction set starts here. Now there's only one thing in the instruction set that never can be changed. That's the ISO. Everything else can be altered. That's what you do when you go into Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom or any of these raw processors. You are changing the instruction set. That's literally what you're doing. But in order to get the information in the computer in the first place, we need to have that raw file and instruction set. And to get the most out of that raw file, which is data, we have to give this camera the most data we possibly can when we go click, so the computer, which can only work from this file, has as much information as it needs to make things work. Okay? So with that said, what's really important to me, is that I want to explain to people, is that when you go in the Nikon, let me get this here, you can see it. Can you see it? Okay, this is the picture control set. You guys have that on your Nikons. Canon has its version, all right? Now these picture control sets, so I've got the D850, and you've got things like vivid and landscape and standard and monochrome. What are those? People wonder, what is those things? Well, if you shot film back in the day, film had a bell curve. And if you bought a box of Kodachrome, you'd see a red tab on it. You've got a box of Ektachrome, you see a blue tab. Fuji would be green. My film of choice, Agfa, would be silver and black. Okay? Now, what was that all about? Okay, well, it's real simple. That red tab on Kodachrome meant that film had a red bias. The Ektachrome had the blue tab, meant it had a blue bias. Fuji had the green, which meant it had green bias. Those are all talking about the bell curve. That's the analog way in which those things work. In other words, the way the light hit the film, the way it bounced around. And keep in mind, I'm really generalizing and I'm really simplifying this conversation, because you really don't need to worry about stuff like a bell curve, because we're not shooting film. Most of us aren't. We're shooting digital. Digital has a tone curve. What's a tone curve? It's the digital version of the analog bell curve. And those picture control sets in the camera are tone curves. You've got different tone curves, landscape, vivid, and all those tone curves are telling the camera, when it sucks in information, how to create the instruction set, so when you look at it in your computer, you see that marvel, that magic, that incredible thing that is a digital photograph. So setting it in the camera, I don't care what anybody says, is really important, because the computer is going to take all that information in. This computer, because this is a computer, that's why I call it a cold, heartless bastard. It is a computer. It's going to take all the information in there that you put in there and create the instruction set. And that instruction set is going to give you all that information you need to make the great big 24x30 prints, which is my standard for quality. So let me see if I got questions just from that part. Let's see here. Patrick, hey, good to see you. Don, hey, how you doing? All right, so far I'm not seeing any radical questions. So I'm going to assume that everybody's with me so far on the same page, because this is confusing. It's probably not what you've heard or read, but here I'm telling you what I've known and done for 20 years, and that's why I've been putting all the information here when it comes to the picture control, which is the tone curve. I'm doing the white balance. I'm doing exposure. I'm doing everything in the camera, Because keep in mind that we're working with computers. They like data. And the biggest data collection device we've got, besides this magical eyes in our brain, is the camera. And the camera has to have all that information we can cram into that click so the computer can do its magic when we go into processing. So that's where I start. I do everything from cropping, which means to me is just working with inside the viewfinder. That's cropping to me, okay? I don't crop any other way. And everything else is done when I go click. Now, part of this process, I like to call it, which came first, the pixel or the chicken, okay? Because, well, you've got to know what the camera can do when you go to the computer. You got to know what the computer can do before you shoot with the camera. And how do you get all that going together, right? That's the big challenge. Okay, so let me see if I can help you a little bit. So we're going to start off with the premise with shooting with the D850. It was a snowy day in Yosemite Valley. It was a gorgeous day, and I had the 7200 on. Now, this scene happened, okay? And I'm going to see if it's going to come up. I'm going to wait for the lag to see if you can see it. I'm hoping this will work. I still might see myself on the screen. The lag is horrendous. Please, oh please, come up, come up, come up, come up. I'm still talking, still talking. I can see the scene, I can see the buffer. Come on. Hey, score! You can see, wow. Well, that's just the first screen. We got more to go. All right, so here's the photograph, okay? D850, 7200. Snowy day. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Now, in this scene, I've got what? I've got this going on right here. Okay, I've got this tree right here, and this tree is really my subject. Now, how do I make that all come out with that scale of that person? And how do I make that person pop out? Well, that's the whole finishing. Now, I wanted this tree to be seen, okay? Wanted it to be seen, but not really seen. I didn't want to be like smacking you in the face, obvious, but I wanted you to see this person as if they're looking at the same thing I am. That's the goal of the photograph. Now, to get there, I did something really simple. I simply went into Adobe Camera Raw. Now, in Adobe Camera Raw, there's a couple things I need to explain to you as we go into that, okay? First and foremost is Adobe Camera Raw on its own, okay, is not going to see what the camera shot. No program is going to do that, okay? You've got to sit there and do what? You've got to call up the instruction set that you created in the camera. That's why I use Photo Mechanic as my digital filing cabinet. I use Adobe Camera Raw to finish the raw file. So that's what I'm doing. I'm finishing the raw file. And I use the finish word very importantly, or anyway, I use the word finish because if you're fixing it in fix mode, you're toast, okay? Now, here's the final settings you can see over here in the basic panel. Now, if I would go back to what the Adobe Camera Raw sees before the instruction set is actually applied, you see this. And there's quite a difference. There is quite a difference between the two. So I'm going to make it go back really simple, quick here. Give me a second. I'm going to go back into the Adobe Camera Raw, applying my settings. Let me make sure that, ooh, it looks like it's working. Hey, good dog. It looks like it's actually making this stuff working. Let's see here. I see I got questions. We see Lightroom? No. Not on my computer. You silly guy. Lightroom, sorry, not even loaded on my computer. You're seeing Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, Camera Raw 10.2, the current build. That's why you see the word Photoshop here. So this is Adobe Camera Raw. Anyway, yes, thank you, Harry. Yeah, that is funny. So you saw the before, and now here's now here's how I got to this point, and it's important. So I'm gonna go back and go to my defaults and explain how I get Adobe Camera Raw to see the instruction set, because it does some, not all. We have to kind of like force it through. Now you could do and click on a preset, and that's where we're going to go, is we're going to create this preset. But what's the preset? If you notice, it's a standard landscape flat. I've named it exactly as the picture control from the camera. And it starts off with over here. I'm going to come over here and you see where it says camera profile. It says Adobe Standard. Now if I click on the drop down menu, you'll see it says Camera Standard. Now here's the thing that gets me. If I were to sit there and put, let's say for example, a photograph up shot with the DF, the Nikon DF, this menu would be different. It wouldn't be populated with camera flat. It would not be populated with some of the monochromes. So they see and they know, because I'm shooting with a D850, the possibilities, but they're telling me I need to use their standard. I don't want to use their tone curve. I want to use the Nikon tone curve, the camera standard, and I click on it. Now watch the screen. Is it going to be a giant change? No, it should be a subtle one. You can see a little brightness, a little pop. Not sure how much is going to translate over the broadcast here, but that subtlety, I'm working on subtleties. That's what's so important to me. Now from that, I'm going to come over here to the what I call the hidden pyramids, the detail. Now you can see these numbers here. Now these numbers don't represent what my instruction sets say. I know that because I test one heck of a lot. I do a lot of testing. So for example, this first number I think should be 85. That's my standard. And then I come down here to the noise reduction. And even though there's not noise in this photograph, I put it in here because there's a lot of times I know what I'm going to do in the digital darkroom is going to create noise. So to repeat that, I know that what I'm going to do in the digital darkroom is going to create noise. So I take this slider over to the E, and I take this one over to E, and it's sitting here saying it doesn't want to do all this stuff while I'm broadcasting, but it's stuck. Nope, nope, yep, nope. Making up its mind. The last thing I do is I'm going to come over here to the basic panel. I go to vibrance, I take it to the world of 30s. Now you could do this every time you shoot a photograph, but personally I just create a preset. When I click on it, all those numbers are now instantly in there. That profile is called up, my numbers here are all in place, and my vibrance is in place. So when I click the preset, what have I done? I've actually called up the instruction set from the camera. It's now being used. So now I'm back to what I call the null spot, the baseline. I am actually back where I took the photograph. So now I get into finishing. So the photograph was all based on what? The subject. This little person looking at that tree. Now, in this scenario, I've got snow falling. To get that snow falling, I'm going to sit there and bring up clarity. I'm going to bring down blacks. And see right off the bat, just those two things. What happens? Now, if I click and hit the letter P, you'll see the before and the after. The before and the after. And you can see what's going on with the difference in the photograph. Now, is there a small difference? Yeah, that's all I want. All I want is a small difference. Now, the big deal is this person down here. How did I make them pop out? Because you watch that red jacket. Isn't that pretty cool? I'm selecting that one thing. That's because I'm going over to what I think is kind of the hidden gem of Adobe Camera Raw. I come over here to the Luminance panel. The first thing you think I can see is I bring the reds down. Saturations, I brought the reds up. And that's what made this person appear. That's how you get that effect on just that jacket. And with that red, you can't help but see it. Now, if I use Canon software, would I need to do this? I don't know. I don't shoot Canon. And to be honest with you, that's your call. At the very beginning, I told you, you have to sit there and think this through. If what I'm saying works for you, you need to embrace it. If not, don't. So if you're asking if Canon software will do it, two things. One, go try it. Will it do this? I don't know. The thing is, it might, but it's not going to be as fast, and it won't instantly go into Photoshop. So you're going to have to save it, go in and out. You're probably going to save a TIFF. And if you hold on a second, I'm going to show you something really cool that you're going to go, oh my, yeah, maybe Canon software ain't the answer. Let's see here. Carol, I see, hey, you found the chat. Congratulations. So now, where am I? All right, so now I have this photograph. It's all done. Now, the key to this whole thing is you want to click on this box down here. It looks like a hyperlink. When you click on that box, the workflow option box appears. And as you can see, I have set my color space to Pro Photo RGB because I'm going to be printing. I've changed the default from 8 to 16-bit. But the most important thing is down here. Open in Photoshop as a smart object. Okay? And why is that? That's because when you go back into Photoshop, okay, what happens is you now have this layer with this little box in the corner. And when you double click on that, see where it says Smart Object Thumbnail? You double click on that, you go right back into Adobe Camera Raw. Now, why would that be important? So let me see if I can get really fancy, and I'm going to close this file and open another one. So give me 2 seconds. We're going to double click in the middle of our workspace. We're going to go to the file, open it, and we're going to see if I did everything correctly, because if I can see it, the next challenge is, can you see it? And that's going to be the challenge. Okay, it looks like it's broadcasting. Whoa! All right, here's the scene, Half Dome. It was a beautiful night. The storm was breaking. Probably a little more snowy over there in the valley tonight than it was when I took this picture. Okay, and you should see it now, Richard. There is quite a bit of gap. Since all of the areas getting lots of snow, signal might be a little frozen, a little slow getting out there. All right, now here's this photograph. Now here's the thing, and this is the hard part. And it's hard for me to express it, but maybe I can do a good job by just giving you this whole thing. Is what you see here is what I felt. Okay, what I see here is what I felt. It is not exactly what I saw. Now, inside the borders here, okay, is everything I saw. I didn't crop and post. I underexposed so the trees would go dark. I cranked up the white balance. You'll see in a second is way up there to get what little color is left because the light was way long gone when I took this picture. And Half Dome, when I see Half Dome, I think of some of the old Ansel Adams photographs. And Ansel burnt and dodged the bejiggers out of Half Dome. So when I finish Half Dome, I kind of go with that same kind of classic look. Now, how did I get there? All right, so let me get into Adobe Camera Raw and explain this process. So you should be seeing Adobe Camera Raw popping up any moment. Now, what I've got going here, and here's kind of a little bit of the challenge, is I work the photograph based on just those two things. I'm slowing down for a second because I don't see it popping up, but it will. First thing is I came over and I clicked on my preset. Boink. And when I did that, okay, you get what you see here. The thing is, when I opened this picture up, before I clicked on my preset and did my work, this is what the photograph looked like. Now, why did the photograph look that way? Here's where you have to marry in a little bit of your heart, your camera, and what you know is going to happen in the computer. And what I mean by that is, this is where the chicken or the pixel come first. So what you're going to see, okay, is a camera, even though I dialed in this temperature here. This temperature, that's a Kelvin number, okay? The D850, D5, any of those Nikon bodies, I think the same for most Canon bodies, their highest Kelvin, you can manually dial in as 10,000 Kelvin. The white balance going on here is above that. Now, how do I access that now that I'm in the computer? Well, I first started by shooting at that high white balance. So I'm not using cloudy, I'm not using shade. I went to the K and I actually manually dialed in whatever it is, 90, 90, whatever the bizarre number is they have there. So it's capturing all the information it can. Then once I go into Adobe Camera Raw, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my preset, okay? And then I will usually come over here. This is my normal workflow. I'm going to come over here to the dust brush. I'm going to see if I got any flying crap in the air. And I don't. Clean sensor. Always nice to see. And then I'll often come over here and I will click again on my detail, going down to masking. Hold down the Option or the Alt key if you're on Windows. When you do that, you get the mask, and it's going to give me a sharp line mask, the bright white. That's all the film plane. I'm going to put in the number of 120 up here. It's sharpening for content, extra layer mask. And now back to that white balance. I'm going to come over to basic. Watch this number over here. I'm going to click over here on the snow. I'm going to come up here. This snow up here is what? Reflecting this dark gray blue that's up here. I click on it and there's one color. Click over here, another color. Get down here, even more blues. So you sit there and select what you want because you've already got the information. Now you just need the computer to honor it. And you just click to set the white balance. And it's totally your call. Now, with that done, still some things missing in the photograph. And kind of blah. Actually very blah. So how did I get to the picture you saw? Let me call it back up because I'm sitting there. And for the sake of time, let me just get back to the picture. So first and foremost, the white that I finally picked with the white balance tool was 23,000 Kelvin. That's what's giving me the warmth. Next thing is happening is I'm bringing down the highlights. So if I double click on this arrow, you'll see the highlights go back and watch this whole area up here because it's the brightest part of the screen. I bring it back down. Now when I do that, what's it doing? It's forcing the eye back down into the frame. I want you to be smacked in the dabble with that. But here's the thing. I want to do some more here. So I'm going to come over here to my Luminance, and here's the thing that's happening. So these colors over here, which also are reflected here, right? Because this light is reflected into this. That light, what I'm doing is I am sitting there taking these sliders. First thing I'm doing is I'm making the blues and bring them down. That's affecting these colors up here. So let me sit there and bring those down. I'm going to bring those down. Making this darker. Making some other things darker. Then the purples and magentas. That's what colors are over here. People like to hit the reds, orange, and yellows. Purple and magentas are more what happens at sunset and sunrise than the red, orange, and yellows. But the biggest thing that's going on here, okay, and the biggest important thing is I went and clicked on the adjustment brush. And you can see right off the bat there's a white dot right there. You can see that I have, in that area, because now the mask is active, in that area, you can see where I have altered the face of Half Dome. I have underexposed it. I have brought down the highlight. I have overexposed it. I brought up the highlights, and I brought up the clarity. I did those three things to that face, and by doing that, you can see how I've changed that face. So there is my alteration. There's the file. Alteration. And I'm saying alteration because this truly was how it was, right? This big face, this rock, is reflecting all this over here. Now this extra color over here, I brought that color into it, okay, that in the top left corner. And I want that color to be seen in the face. So I have brought up that face using the adjustment brush and painting in just that area. And it's just that simple. You got to understand that we came from a long way, right? We came from, let me get back over to, we came from that, right? That's kind of cold. It's kind of austere, not very romantic. And if you want to bring in that romance, because there is no passion slider in any of these in here, you have to bring it in yourself. And that's how you get to that photograph, okay, that you see in Photoshop. Now the key here, at least what I think, is the fact that I've used the Luminar, okay? And if I double click on this, here's the beauty of it. Now I didn't check on this one. I might have to do something real quick. Let's see if Luminar will actually sit there and broadcast. I didn't think about Luminar. Alright, so I see it there. And I'm going to have to add real quick. Hang on, window capture. Luminar. And okay. Let me reduce the size so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry folks, I didn't think about this one. With OBS, you have to have one of these for each screen. You can't have one just for the monitor. All right. Now I got Luminar up, and what I have done here is I have simply clicked on my Pro Contrast preset I have created. You can see on the right, you can see my numbers. And if you're wondering why I haven't shared my presets for Luminar like I did back with Nick, that's because Luminar does not make it graceful for me to export and for you to import them. So they're the numbers. You can sit there and create your own. Simply click Add Filters, put them in there, put the numbers, save filter preset in the bottom right corner, and good you go. Now, what is this doing for me? Well, what it's doing for me is very simple. You poke out the eyeball, boink, and then bring it back. You can see the before. That's what Photoshop's seeing. That's what it's seeing after being kissed by Luminar. Now, I'm bringing out the extra little detail, and most importantly, the relationship between the blacks and the whites by doing this. And that's it. And that's what makes this whole thing work, I think. That's the basic formula for what I do as a photographer. And that's the final photograph. Now, there you have my landscape finishing, camera shooting philosophy in a 30-minute nutshell. Let me see if I can answer any questions you might have. Patrick, can't see my cursor. Sorry, that could be me, could be you. That I don't know. Jonathan. Let's see here. No. David, do you use a Wacom mousse? I get whacked all the time, but no. I do have a Wacom, and it is right over there, and I'm using it less and less since I do so much of my finishing on my notebook in the field. So, for example, the 1.3 terabytes I just came home with, all the finished photographs are already finished, and I've gotten to the point where now I do almost everything with a touchpad. And I remember back in the day, I'd sit there and I'd watch Scott Kelby doing all his finishing. And he did everything with a touchpad. I'm like, how do you do it with a touchpad? Well, you finish thousands of photographs, you get to it. So I'm doing almost everything with a touchpad now. The Wacom is there, but man, it gets used like that much anymore. But it's a good question. Carol, scrambling to redo my Yosemite images. Well, I hope you're not doing all of them. I mean, that's not the point of this. The point of this whole thing is to give you ideas for your storytelling that you want to finish and bring out in your photographs. It's really important to understand this is really about you. I'm just sharing how I do it because I have no other reference point. But I want you to do it the way you tell a story. And as you know, there's a lot more to this than just what I shared, but I don't have that much time. But, you know, I appreciate the compliment. Frank, I'm glad you liked the presentation. It's good to hear you. For those who know, Frank Tona has this marvelous cam store up in Redding, California. Frank takes care of a lot of people for me, and he's a really great guy. So you see him on the chat, you need camera gear. Hey, Frank's your guy, okay? And he's really knowledgeable, and he's nice, okay? Now here's the thing about Frank. Nobody knows. We used to have a thing called BT Journal. This is a long time ago. This is going to be like 90, either 95, 96. I need to get my first computer to do desktop publishing. Frank's smart. He's the one that set me up with the computer and everything to get going in the beginning. So he's a really good resource, especially in this day of digital. So check it out. Hey, good day. Does that mean, Peter, you're from down under? Received your aviation book this week. Congratulations. It's a great read question. Have you got a set of rules for making a good crop? As in cropping in post? Good rule? Don't do it. I mean, you do it all here. That's the good rule, okay? All I can say is this. If you give yourself a crutch on anything in photography, and you say, I could do this and I could fix it later, what happens with that crutch? It's always going to be a crutch. I was just talking earlier on the Kelby forums. I think people put way too much pressure on each click. If you don't get it right, the sun still comes up tomorrow. So if you don't like the way you arrange the elements of the frame, learn from it so next time you do what I like to tell people is zoom with your feet. So I don't ever crop in post, okay? Just don't. But thank you for getting the book and reading it. That's a good question. Dennis, from the final photo, what next do you prep for printing? Dennis, that's a darn good question, and we'll do it another time at another live broadcast, because it's going to take a little bit more than what we got time for, because, oh gosh, look at that, I'm already 7 minutes over, right? So I got to keep it short, keep it quick. Producers here. It's time for hot tea and cookies, because we've been in with the snow today, so I got hat hair. Any other questions? Peter, glad you understand that. Now, I want to add a little caveat to that. When I say crop the camera, and Canon folks, except for a couple of you, can't do this. I do use high-speed crop in the camera. So I'm cropping in the camera, okay? I'm not cropping on post. With high-speed crop, you get two things with a Nikon. First, you do get, you know, if it's an FX camera, you get what people call a DX size image, okay, file, those dimensions. But more importantly to me, high-speed crop is you get a faster frame per second firing rate. So if you are shooting at air show, keep in mind that high-speed crop allows you to not only get a bigger image size, but gives you a faster firing rate for those planes going around. That faster firing rate can be worth more to you than that crop. So keep that in mind, okay? But Brisbane, boy, we haven't got to that part of Australia yet. It's on our to-do list. So hopefully at some point we can share a brew and talk about this in person over there. Well, so I see I got more folks this week than last time, and I appreciate that. I hope this helped you. Now, remember that keep on subscribing, okay? If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Remember, you can find me, okay, on all those various social networks. I do like to talk to you folks, and that includes here on the live chat as well, that happens afterwards when the chat gets posted on my YouTube channel. So if you have questions come up, please put them there. I know I've really thrown a bunch at you tonight. So hey, as this stuff goes through your head today, tomorrow, the next week, please don't hesitate to ask the question. Now, there are many videos already on my YouTube channel, like Adobe Camera Raw. I posted one last year about how I create my preset. I go through it. Remember, you can re-watch this and pause it. And of course, I've got all those. I got two hour-long finishing classes on Kelby 1 on landscape, one on aviation. So all that combined will give you an idea how I finish. But just want to close with this. Remember, it's not about me. It's about you, your photography, and the story you want to tell. And I think that's really important. I got an email from a good friend Patrick yesterday. He works with ESRP, and it's a very important group of scientists, biologists. I've been with them since the beginning, and they listed me on the Endangered Species Recovery Plan as one of the contributors. Anyway, they just got a very important recognition for their 25 years. And Patrick said that, a big part of that glory belongs to me as well because of my photographs helping them tell their story and getting their message out. And that's how important this photography stuff is. Remember, it's a visual that people can relate to. It's a story that people can grab onto, and it's the way you can share your world. So that's really what all this finishing's about. So thanks so much for spending time with me. I plan to have the next one in 2 weeks again, and hopefully we'll get a couple more things going that will help you and your photography. Thanks, folks. Have a great evening.